Hi, readers. Welcome to an in conversation between Alison Callahan and Jens Liljestrand. I am Bianca Dukas, a senior marketing manager at Scout Press, who also has the privilege of working on Even If Everything Ends, a novel set in the Swedish countryside as the climate crisis escalates, turning vacationers into refugees. With that being said, please allow me to introduce Alison and Jens. Jens is a critically acclaimed journalist and writer in his native Sweden. He has been a critic for Sweden newspapers and was a long-serving editor of the culture section of Expressen. His best-selling biography about Wilhelm Moberg, The Man in the Woods, was nominated for the prestigious August Prize. Even If Everything Ends is his English language debut. And Alison began her publishing career as a reader for the fiction editors in The New Yorker and The Atlantic. In 2014, she joined Simon & Schuster, where she is currently vice president and executive editor. In 2015, she helped launch the literary imprint Scout Press with Ruth Ware's debut in The Dark, Dark Wood. And along the way, the authors Alison has edited include Amy Schumer, Stanley Tucci, Ian Reid, and many others. Without further ado, Alison and Jens, please take it away.
I wanted to ask you, Jens, right from the start, what made you want to write the book as it was happening?
So in the summer of 2018, there were these horrible mega fires in Sweden. You had what you called, if you watched CNN, they would be talking about the Arctic fires.
And this was unusual.
Yeah, I mean, as everything is. I mean, everything is, on an historical, biblical scale these days, right? So there were these mega fires in Sweden. Fortunately, no lives were lost. Just lots and lots of property, but it made me think about, it made me think really hard about these topics and these issues. But what was interesting is that as soon as summer turned into fall, and the weather got cooler, and the fires died out, people stopped talking about it. People stop worrying about it. You look away. There's some new crisis to be dealt with, and people move on. And that's what happens all the time. That there's this big crisis, there's this big, fire or flooding or whatever, and then it stops bothering you, and then you move on. And so I just wanted to stay in that moment and see what could have happened. If it was, 10 times as big, if we get the kind of fires that you have today in California, that you have today, right now, as we speak, in Australia, right?
Well, I have to say, one of the biggest pieces of your novel that I loved is that you've told it from 4 different perspectives. And the 4 perspectives that you give us in this book are so wildly different. And what was a huge testament to your writing is that as I was reading the book, I found myself in each of them, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. And you have a climate change denier saying, drink the wine, take the vacation. You can't stop it. It's already here. And then you have the heroic father trying to save his family desperately and kind of bungling it up, at every turn. You have a son who's using this catastrophe to exact revenge on his father, who didn't pay enough attention to him when he was younger, and then you have the young daughter who is just so obsessed by her phone, and yet when push comes to shove and the world comes to an end, she drops the phone and takes control. And so you present to us, the people that you could be, or the people you could become. And I wondered if there were any of these 4 characters that you chose that you sort of related to the most. And I know you're not going to say the climate change denying Instagram person.
I'm definitely going to say that.
I have to say I was swayed by her a little here and there. Like, maybe I will crack out, the 1952 bottle of wine, because she comes from a point of view that a lot of people, at least in our country, come from. So I know you're not going to say her, but I have to say there were moments where I was like, oh, maybe I kind of agree with her a little in terms of live life. So I wondered if there was someone that you related to the most as you were writing it.
Well, the thing with the characters is that it's true that there are 4 points of view in the novel, 4 very different characters, but I use them to, try and capture of feeling, because the climate catastrophe creates such a mixture, such a complicated blend of feelings within each and every one of us. There's the desperate father, and his feeling is panic and desperation. That's what we all feel, right? We feel panic and desperation. And then there's the climate change denier, who is more of a selfish person. She's not actually denying it. She's just saying that I have only one life, which is true. She does only, and we all only have one life. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to enjoy the wine or don't you?
Right.
I mean, nature is not going to be affected whether you drink the wine or not. Right. Nature's not going to be affected whether you eat the beef or not, because the cow was already killed, right? So it doesn't change anything. So why not enjoy it? We can all relate to that at some point, I think. And then there's the loser son, whose feeling is anger. He's angry. He's angry with his father, and this anger is his way of dealing with the climate crisis, that this is someone's fault. Someone should be punished for this. I need to exact revenge on someone for doing this to me, which is a sentiment that a lot of young people have today with the older generation, that,
absolutely,
our parents' generation, they have stolen our future, right?
Yep.
And then there's the girl, there's this teenage girl who just steps up and, again, someone who saves what can still be saved, and who is in all this chaos, she's reacting with responsibility and with resilience, and trying to be constructive, trying to just be pragmatic, even if everything ends, and even if everything is horrible and horrific, try to be pragmatic and constructive, and just solve one problem at a time.
Well, I love that you find that you pinpoint these 4 universal feelings that we all are experiencing all at once. It's panic, it's ambivalence, it's anger, and it's sort of, optimism. And so you take us through all of these points, and I found it astonishing, because at the end of the day, even when everything ends, what each of them experiences is, what does it mean for me? And so at the end of it, selfishness kind of rises above. And yet, throughout all of this, as I was reading, it made me hesitate in every aspect of my life when I was done. Do I reach for the straw? Do I reach for the... And it changed my whole outlook, which is extraordinary for a novel. So I wonder, what do you feel, when you read when you see the reaction the world is having to your book? It's not just here in the States, and it's not just in your home country. It's being translated all over. What do you think? Do you think people are panicking? Do you think people are angry, when they finish your book? Do you think they're optimistic? And that's I would love to know what you hope the takeaway is. Because I don't think you're not wagging your finger at us. You're just saying, pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with my novel is not trying to convince anyone that there's a climate crisis.
Right.
If you still not believe there's a climate crisis, I can't help you. And no novel is going to help you.
Right.
If you don't believe science, why should you trust a novel, right?
Right.
So I think that's I'm not trying to, finger pointing. I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to educate the public.
No.
Right. I'm trying to express a situation that I think many people can understand and relate to. And I think that the main reaction to my book, if you just boil it down, is that the climate catastrophe is here. It's now. It's all around us, and it should be part of our culture.
Absolutely.
Right? It should be just like, what's it called in English? Decameron?
Yeah.
Boccaccio, right? About the plague. I mean, how can we talk about anything else? Or like everything calm on the Eastern Front, or something like that, or For Whom the Bell Tolls. I think literature and culture must step up and be part of the time. And
a harbinger of what's to come, I honestly believe. One of your publishers said that if Jonathan Franzen and Greta Thunberg were to come together and write a novel, this would be it. And I couldn't agree with them more, because at the end of the day, even though you are presenting to us the world as it is, you're doing it with a lot of humor as well. I found myself snickering on every page, or at least every other page. And I wonder if that was a deliberate move on your part. You know, were you giving us a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down?
Well, I mean, the novel is written from a middle class perspective. I mean, a privileged middle class Northern European perspective. And I think, I mean, if you're a farmer in Kenya, this is not a lot. I mean, there's nothing to laugh about, right?
Right.
So I think that but if you're a privileged person today, there's an absurdity. There's a complete absurdity to what's going on, to how we continue to lead a lifestyle that is, you know, rapidly moving us towards extinction. And we just keep doing what we're doing and hope that somehow this is going to be solved. So there's an absurdity to that. There's what do you call it, gallows humor?
Yes.
To that that I think it's, for me at least, it's impossible not to express that. There's this feeling. I mean, some people call my novel a satire. And right. I don't agree with it being a satire. I mean, not in the sense that, you know, Jonathan Swift right. wrote satires like Gulliver's Journey and so forth. I mean, it's not like that. It's not an allegorical tale.
No,
but it has a dark humor, and I do think our situation today has a dark humor. I mean, just look around us. I mean, look. We have, I mean, just right now, we have skiing competitions in Europe. It's full of, you know, cross-country skiing competitions, and you watch it on TV, and there's this manufactured snow put out on these lanes, and everywhere else is just brown, right? There's this manufactured snow to make it look like winter. While
it's not funny. It's not funny, but it is.
And you see these athletes sort of trying to, you know, use their poles in the mush, right? And in the slush. So, I mean, that's absurd, right? It's funny.
It is absurd.
It's sad, but it's funny. And I think that, for me at least, it was impossible not to, at some level, absorb that.
Would you consider yourself, after all of this, and I believe you're working on another book in a similar territory, not necessarily a sequel, but an equal, with new characters, but experiencing perhaps a major blackout. But as you immerse yourself in writing these books, I can't imagine that you wouldn't just want to go take a long walk off a bridge at the end of the day. But would you consider yourself an optimist?
Well, that means, I mean, what is an optimist today? Do I believe that humanity will survive? Yes. Do I believe that our civilization will survive? Yeah, I kind of do. And I think that makes me an optimist. If you look at where we are, I think that the climate crisis is going to, you know, be enormously bad especially for people living in, you know, dry and warm parts of the planet. But there's also so much awareness. I mean, and when you release a book like this, you realize that there's so much awareness, there's so much engagement and activity, and so many smart people working hard on solutions. And in the past, I mean, I started writing this book 4 years ago, and only in these past 4 years, there has been a huge development, even in the US as well. I'm happy to say, when it comes to, you know, how you deal with climate change and how you deal with resilience and how you deal with, you know, fossil-free energy. So I think there's much more reason for optimism now, and there were 5 years ago. But I also think that on a different level, I think that writing about these things, talking about them, and reading about them is helpful. You know, today, climate anxiety is actually a diagnosis today. I've talked to, you know, trained psychotherapists who say that climate anxiety, you know, we treat people for that. And one of the treatments they have for climate anxiety is to learn about it and talk
Yes.
about it and be active, find a way to contribute. So I think that actually releases the tension, releases anxiety, and maybe even makes you more of an optimist.
It's been so nice speaking with you today about this book, Jens, and I find that I can't talk about it enough. I cannot wait for it to come out just a couple of months from now. And I hope that we hear more from you in the future about it. But I want to say thank you so much, and that I hope everyone will read it and have their mind changed, or at least get a little bit more worked up about what's to come.
Thank you. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you so much, Alison and Jens, for this great conversation. And thank you to readers for supporting even if everything ends.